Okay, so let's get into some of the specific fields that I show on this administration console. The first one here is the desired controller in action, and that just kind of pre-pops that with whatever controller in action you're currently in. And there's different ways that you could implement this administration console to get started. You could paste this code in your new controller, and so long as your view kind of has the raw output to print the output, you can get started real quickly. But it's mostly used to generate buttons and whatnot, like point to the proper predefined action on your buttons. The internal name here, that's pretty important, but it doesn't matter what the value is, it just needs a name, so that if you had multiple lists on the same page, the ajax wouldn't collide and you got the proper IDs. The title here, you can blank that out and that would get rid of this bottom thing. And the initial description, again, you can blank these out, and let's take a look. If we go to the next page, the iframe will re-render and you can see kind of how everything's looking in your preview. So we'll leave everything there. Now you can allow sorting or not right here. The no data found message, it just kind of pre-pops everything with the model name. So if you have good model names, it kind of pops in the table. And that's just if whatever search criteria somebody finds, or if there's an error, show that in the list instead of, obviously there's no data to show. So, here are all the fields on this table that we chose. And there's a lot you can do with this, because these are all the visible fields we're seeing. So again, if I didn't want to show the date, you could hide that and or remove it, and you can kind of toggle these guys back and forth, the hiding and the showing from the hidden fields. And I don't know why that's not checked, but that should be checked. We should always make sure that's checked if you have those, if there's some sort of JS bug that I just found. And you can add any other fields that maybe maybe you created this at one point in the model and the columns were there, and now you need to maintain this. The great thing about this administration console is right now, if you see what kind of happened here, let me try to wrap this around. Just with those couple of posts there, it's already storing a JSON array in this kind of temp file here. So that's how it's able to eval this config and render all the code, the controller code it takes to draw this thing in a print preview type scenario. So again, you can show and hide. Now if you hide something, whoops, let's see, I added a field function, which we might as well get into that because I accidentally clicked the wrong button. But a field function is to essentially wrap a function around something. So maybe you wanted to format something. This way we have unique IDs, we have unique descriptions for these sort columns, and then we can call custom functions to wrap around the fields afterward. So let's get back to the hiding. Now, if I didn't want date added to show, this field is still in the select statement, so you can still bind it in with tags and whatnot into those links and things I was showing you earlier. So we can move on. We can hide the date added right now. And then I just completed the options section. So for each field, you get a bunch of different options. So there's all these defaults, like the list everything's searchable by default. So everything's searchable and sortable. The summarize that we saw earlier, we can check that off just for fun, and we'll summarize the SKU in this example. And for this one, let's create a price pop-up for a title, which would go right here with a title. And let's set the column width to let's say 200 or 200 px. It doesn't matter what you enter in there. And might as well set up a link here. Let's just go to we already got the autofill here, google.com/price to pass the value, and then ASDF. So we'll do some advanced stuff there. And that's about it for the fields. Next step, we go to the rows. We can set kind of a default row limit. Let's say you wanted 20 or more. You really only have these options, plus you can add 1,000 in. So if you tried to add like 105, I don't know if it'll let you go. Yeah, invalid row limit. So let's just keep it to 10. If you check on the row buttons, again, remember you saw that actions column. You give it a name. Let's just call it, Dave for the buttons. And remember we talked about the controller and action location in the first step. Well, that's where it builds some of these, typical buttons you might use. And let's just kind of click on the rows again and see exactly what we have going on. Again, you can add a new button. You can change the class. There's different classes you can choose for the widget buttons. And so let's go down to the drill downs. So let's remember we were drilling down by SKU. So if I type in SKU, it all worked. Now if I type in ASDF, it does a little invalidation thing. And what the drill downs does, you're kind of limited, but what you can see it did was it changed the name here to SKU linked, and I keep having problems with these checkboxes being unchecked right now, but I'll fix that. So we want to keep that checked just because it won't really work without that. But it changed the name here to SKU linked, and it added a hidden field SKU. So we'll just keep with one drill down now. Now here we got show search. That's this whole div right here, and there's all sorts of features under that. You could add grouping. So we could say, oh, okay, I want to group by name. We already have the label group by, so let's just call it name. And let's group by active. I think it's an active column. So we give it a label. Again, you can control whether you want to use ransack or not. The search ID by CSV or more. Now that's this kind of title before you try to search. And then you can show your export button or not. Let's just keep all the defaults for now. And let's go to our footer actions. So now you can see in our print preview we got a bunch of different things going on here. You can toggle showing the pagination or not. Let's just play with that. See what happens. See if we get it. Yeah, okay, so no pagination now. Now you're stuck at 10 records per. You can also see that total we added with I think we added up the SKUs. But let's go back and we'll make sure we show the pagination. If you want to build a customized footer, normally you'd have down here like an add button for a new record, and you build a form for that. And again, it kind of pre-pops your controller and then add, if you were doing a full CRUD implementation with your data here. So then that's about it. You can go and add a checkbox. Like we saw before, where you bind in a value that you want as the value, and let's go ahead and submit this. And what it does, it gives you all the code. There's really no sense in going over every single parameter, but there's really no setters and getters. It's just one huge hash. And right now we could go into our example. Let's just throw it right into our administration code, and let's just return right here. And let's just make another request. So here's our first list we built. It has all the features we wanted, and it's a great way to get started. And then you can just kind of rummage through all the code and figure out if you want some customizations. In the future, I thought of possibly having no code and doing the eval right to kind of render this exact code, but just return it into your list parms. As of right now, I don't really think that's needed. I think you get a lot more control if you get this base thing and either modify it or make minor improvements to it. And so if I undo this, and we get back to the administration console and we just press enter, you can see now you can either start a new widget list or you can edit the existing. So if you edit the form, you know, again, my title and everything was blank. Normally that's in there, but you can see it kind of preloads only the options that you configured. Now you can double click it and get all of them again and start, you know, let's say we didn't want that sortable, and let's say we want, we can do that one, just do another header title. And instead of redoing it, we can kind of just see some of these changes I just made. I think I made price not sortable, so you can see that's not clickable. And I think that's about it with the widget list. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and hopefully the widget list kind of takes the Rails community by storm and everybody starts using it. So thanks for listening.